Okay, let's talk about Stoicism. We continue our discussion of the Enchiridion by Epictetus in the translation How to Be Free by Professor A. Long. And here we have an interesting chapter, short chapter, and one that is pretty straightforward, I think, in many ways. Chapter 41. It is the mark of a crude disposition to spend most of one's time on bodily functions such as exercise, eating, drinking, defecating, and copulating. These are things to be done just incidentally. All your attention should be on your mind. I very much picture Epictetus sort of looking at his students and going like, "Stop taking a crap, you've already taken 3 today." You know, it's kind of, this doesn't really make sense, right? That's probably not what he meant. What he meant is very simple and is very clear. All your attention should be on your mind. Okay, so it's not necessarily physical pleasures to strive for and to find, to pursue, but it's your mental development that matters. And this is why the Stoics often were at odds with the Epicureans, who, contrary to popular belief, did not say, well, you should just do whatever you want. That's really an incorrect simplification of Epicureanism. But they were much more in favor of, but you can enjoy the good things in life. Now, what I found very interesting is to draw a parallel here with Epictetus's teacher that I read from before, Musonius Rufus. And Cynthia King translated his lectures and some of his sayings. And interestingly enough, he actually has a lecture, number 12, entitled by Musonius from the lecture about sexual matters. And it's very interesting because I very much enjoy Rufus. It's a shame that much of his material has been lost to time. So I won't read you the start of this lecture, but I'll read you the final part, which I think is very crucial. And sorry for zoning in on the sexual aspect, but I think this is something that a lot of people may struggle with or may not understand. I mean, you know you should not overindulge in food because it will have negative effects on your health. You know you shouldn't overindulge in alcohol because it will have negative effects on your health. But the sexual matters are sometimes difficult. So here we go. By Zeus, says a listener, even though the adulterer wrongs the husband of the seduced woman, the man who associates with a mistress, or even by Zeus with an unmarried woman, does not wrong anyone, for he does not ruin anyone's hope for legitimate heirs. Now, Musonius answers, I maintain, however, that everyone who acts... I lost where I was. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I maintain, however, that everyone who acts wrongly and unjustly, even if he doesn't hurt those near to him, immediately shows himself to be entirely base and somewhat dishonorable. The person who does wrong, inasmuch as he does wrong, is base and dishonorable. Even if we ignore the unjust behavior, we must conclude that the man overcome by shameful pleasure, the man who delights in getting himself dirty as pigs do, is controlled by his lack of self-control. This includes the man who consorts with his own female slave. Now this is where I think things get very interesting. Remember how last time we talked about women's rights and such, Stoic views on that, and then I quoted Musonius Rufus as well from his lecture where he explains that women should also study philosophy, and he is very much in favor of equal women's rights, right? Here, I think he does something very interesting as well, because in Roman society, it was not at all uncommon for men to have sex with their slaves. It was not uncommon for men to have sex with other men, even if they were married, to have sex with boys. There was all kinds of interesting sexual behavior going on, and I use that term, you know, with much reservation, but there was a lot going on, and there were very double standards. Women, and I hate to say it, but I fear not a whole lot has changed necessarily in society. There are different standards for men and women when it comes to sexual behavior, right? Men having sex with a lot of women are considered very interesting. Women having sex with a lot of men are considered whores. I'm not saying that I say that. I'm saying that that is kind of a societal standard that we deal with. And I find it very interesting that so long ago, Musonius Rufus actually speaks out against that double standard. So, This includes the man who consorts with his own female slave, an act some people consider to be completely blameless, since every master is thought to have complete power to use his own slave however he wants. In response to this, my reasoning is simple. If someone thinks that it is neither shameful nor unnatural for a master to consort with his own female slave, and especially if she happens to be unmarried, what would he think if his wife would consort with a male slave? Would he not think that this was intolerable, not just if a woman who had a lawful husband would submit to a male slave, but even if an unmarried woman would do this? And yet no one will suggest that men should have a lower standard of conduct than women, or be less able to discipline their own desires, that those who are supposedly stronger in wisdom would be bested by those who are weaker, or that those who are rulers would be bested by those who are ruled. Men should have a much higher standard of behavior if they expect women to follow them. If they are more weak-willed than women, no comment, they appear inferior to them. Why do I even need to say that only a lack of self-control could cause a master to consort with a female slave? Everyone knows this. How interesting. Double standards. So what we're talking about is, of course, not just sexuality, right? We're talking about other things as well, because Epictetus is clear, right? Exercise, eating, drinking, defecating, and copulating. And all of this can once again be summed up in everything in moderation, right? Moderation being one of those 4 core virtues that the Stoics really value, and really appreciate, and really stick to. Everything in moderation. And that also applies to these bodily things. Eating, drinking, sexual activity can all be fun in moderation. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing, right? And an interesting point that Epictetus is making, I kind of wanted to focus a little bit on this, on Musonius Rufus's comments on this double standard that was clearly in society then, and that I think you see again, or still see now, right? That's very interesting. But the point Epictetus is trying to make is that, again, too much of a good thing is a bad thing, but also that can detract from your mental, your spiritual development, right? He says, he ends with that, all your attention should be on your mind. And that, of course, is very important to Stoics, because, as we have discussed many times before, Stoicism is about rational behavior, rationally cognitive behavior, thinking about your thoughts, thinking about whether your thoughts make sense, thinking about whether that is the only or the best interpretation of your thoughts, and as a result, feel better. Incorrect interpretations of thoughts, of passions, can actually make your life less bearable, can make it harder for you to live and live properly. So, there you have it, right? Now, an important question I think that we can ask is, but so does this mean that the Stoics say that we should not enjoy life? Because this is a thing that I hear a lot from people. Like, yeah, but Stoicism is about you have to be an ascetic, you can't do anything enjoyable in life. Not really. Seneca is quite clear about that, how he enjoys a good meal, how he takes cold baths to toughen himself up. So, you know, there is that sort of disparity between those two things. But Seneca definitely enjoyed life. Seneca had a lot of money, and he traveled, and he ate nice meals, and he drank nice wine. There was no doubt about it. Epictetus, I think, is special in this regard, because he used to be a slave, right? He had no freedom. He did not have the freedom to enjoy the good things in life. And even then, when he became a freedman, he still said, but everything in moderation. Everything in moderation. Whether it's good food or having sex, whatever, everything in moderation. And I think, let's face it, I think that is a pretty good way to live. It doesn't mean you can never have pleasure. It doesn't mean you cannot eat that nice meal, right? But it means that you have to do it in moderation, right? People habitually overeat, overdrink, overindulge in all kinds of addictions and things. And that is problematic, and then it becomes a problem, because then it starts to interfere with your spiritual, mental, cognitive development as, say, a Stoic. And it leads to problems because you start to make errors. You start to reason incorrectly, because you start to pursue things that you should not be pursuing. If you pursue, say, money at the cost of everything, and you sacrifice your virtue in doing so, then you have a problem. You will get your money in the long run, maybe, but you will have obtained it in a way that is not virtuous. And that is a problem. That is a problem, to a Stoic at least. So, everything in moderation. I've said that a few times before, so I think the basic message, the take-home message of this chapter is simple. I just wanted to bring in Musonius's viewpoints on sexuality and men and women and the standards therein, because I find that interesting. And Stoics said some weird things too, but one of the reasons this philosophy appeals to me is because of this, because of the acceptance of all. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor and a Stoic, and Epictetus used to be a slave and was a Stoic. So it doesn't really matter who you are or what you are. What matters is that you lead the life that is best to you, that you are the best version of yourself. And I genuinely believe that Stoicism can help you to attain that. And that's why I keep doing these videos, to hopefully make people think and make them consider those options. And that's pretty much it. So, go out, have fun, and enjoy life. Because if you don't enjoy life, what's the point in living? However, everything in moderation. And let's face it, that's just sensible. That's common sense. We know we shouldn't overeat. We know we shouldn't drink too much. We know we shouldn't engage in certain activities too much. We sometimes do it anyway. And then it becomes a problem, a distraction that leads you away from the true path of virtue. And that's an issue. So, I hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you again next week and talk some more about Stoicism. Bye.